Hello, this is Lisette from Amsterdam in our blog, The Year of Being 70, with my long time friend Lucy McCarrer, who is in Norfolk. And every week we speak about our life as it was when we grew up and our life as it is now that we are very, very grown up.
I like that. That's a nice way of putting it. 70 is very, very grown up, but
Very,
not
very
old,
grown up
just grown up.
and still learning.
Oh, definitely still learning. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, so this week, Lucy, you suggested we talk about the mind, and
Yes.
I'm very curious.
Well, think about well, somebody once asked me, I was on an interview, a radio interview, a long time ago now, and the question was, what does the inside of your mind look like, or something like that? And it was a great question for me because I realized I absolutely did have a picture of what the inside of my mind looked like. And it was very clear. I could immediately answer that.
Tell
So
us.
so I'll tell you. So my mind is divided up into two places. One is the front office and one is the back library. And there are two people who live in those specific places. And in the front office is someone I call Miss Moneypenny
Hmm.
because she is the day-to-day manager of, what happens immediately, dates, appointments,
Like
sorting
a
things out.
PA.
Yes, like a PA.
And
Yes,
why do you call her Miss Moneypenny? Not
that's why I call
everybody.
her Miss Moneypenny because she's
Yes,
sort of,
but who's Miss Moneypenny then?
yes, a sort of secretarial kind of role,
So
but
she
it's
was
not.
Miss Moneypenny is James
In
Bond's
James Bond,
secretary,
yes,
right?
yes, that was
Or
his
his boss's
secretary.
secretary.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's kind of the archetypal secretary PA sort of person.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she's a lot more than that, but she deals with the pretty much instant, the stuff that happens on the outside, and takes it in and makes it happen. And then there's a sort of at the back of her office. I mean, this is all a little bit vague, but this is really how I imagine it. There's a door, and the door is the door. She cannot go back through that door. She is in the front office. She cannot access what I call the library. And in the library, I see green metal filing cabinets like my father used to have in his office. But it goes back into like kind of the cosmos in a way. And there are also kind of like computer servers. There are connections, there are wires, there are books even. And in the library, there is the librarian. And the
Mhm.
librarian is a sort of geeky kind of person. I'm never quite sure whether they're male or female, it doesn't matter. But they wear a kind of white lab coat in my mind. So they're sort of a scientist. And when they are given a problem to work on or a connection to make, they go off and they disappear into the back of this. It's sort of like the TARDIS in Doctor Who, if that means anything to you. So
No
that's
idea
no,
what that
okay.
is.
So the TARDIS is it looks like an old-fashioned police box, but when you go in, it is an enormous, endless spaceship come kind of universe almost. And that's what the back of my mind, that's what my library looks like. So my librarian will go off and solve problems and make connections and then bring things forward. And then, but I and Miss Moneypenny have no access to those until they ping forward, until he or she posts them into the front office where they become conscious and available. So I sort of feel that, for example, when I said to you the idea for this podcast, The Year of Being 70, popped into my mind fully formed, my belief is that somehow I had I had some desire to create something about being 70, and I had sort of left it with my librarian, and they were working on it in the background, completely unbeknownst to me. And then one day they sort of emailed it or posted it or whatever. I haven't got the mechanism kind of clear there
It
into the
doesn't
front
come through
office.
that door because you
Yes,
have this door
exactly.
behind, like the door there behind
Yes.
Miss Moneypenny. It doesn't come, it's not kind of the door opens and it's kind of flung into her inbox.
No, it's sort of there's some secret way of delivering it.
Oh.
And sometimes I think the delivery happens at night when I'm asleep, and Miss Moneypenny's asleep too, but the librarian never sleeps. In fact, the librarian often works hardest during the night, I think.
Mm.
So in the morning, Miss Moneypenny and I woke up and went back on duty, and ping, there was this idea with the title, the idea, the co-host, all kind of sitting in a package on her desk and ready for me to action or not action. So I suppose essentially what I've done is kind of unknowingly and from I don't know when I started having this idea, this sort of visualization, but decades ago, what I've done is taken things like Jung's conscious and subconscious, thinking fast, thinking fast, thinking slow. That's the same, basically the same. It's sort of all those sorts of concepts which have been there sometimes over decades and sometimes as a result of kind of more recent neuroscience. But that there are two parts of the mind, not I can't call it the brain. And I suppose actually it possibly also links back to Ian Gilchrist and left and right brain, left and right hemispheres. Sorry, not let's not call it left and right brain, but where the left hemisphere deals in a much more concrete way with practicalities and making sort of making things reasonable and rational, while the right hemisphere is open to making things as wide and as connected and as broad and uncertain in a way as possible. And I think that is my way of trying to make the two work together. And I believe that you can actually train your librarian to do a lot of work for you. So when you have a problem or a question or something that needs solving, you can often spend an awful lot of very fruitless time trying to get Miss Moneypenny to work out the answer. And it just doesn't work. And you actually have to say, do not think about this anymore, Miss Moneypenny. And to the librarian, here's the problem. Go away and, you can actually say, I'd love to have this problem solved in 2 days. And I actually think you can train yourself to have this, get this kind of subconscious mechanism working for you by consciously sort of employing it like that. And I think that the metaphor that I've developed helps. I think often we develop metaphors for things we don't really understand, but we can, if we have a metaphor for it, we can sort of control it, make use of it, sort of, kind of make it happen.
You
So
have been training your librarian to
yes.
be, at work for you. I'm so curious about how other people who are listening, whether they have as vivid and as precise and as, even kind of humorous in a way, a picture of their minds as you have.
Or whether they just think I'm completely mad. I mean,
Well, that could
that's the
also
other
be the
alternative.
case. But
But
yeah.
I ended up kind of characterizing it quite specifically like this because I realized that when I was mentoring people to write their books, that often they spent a lot of time thinking, overthinking about, problems, what they should put in, content, structure. And I would say to them, I explained the concept of Miss Moneypenny and the librarian. I would say, just, throw it back to the librarian, stop thinking about it, get Miss Moneypenny working on something else so she can't interfere, because I think that is a way of stopping the librarian working. If you try and keep Miss Moneypenny on it, there's a tussle, but they can't work on something in the same way at the same time. So that's why it's often so good to meditate or to go for a walk or go and cook a meal or do something completely different when you've got this thing that you're thinking about or problem to worry about. And you have to let go and you have to let your librarian work on it on their own without interference. So that's when I kind of characterized it in a very specific way to help other people get their books written.
Hmm.
So what's in having I've kind of sprung it on you away in a way. If I ask you, what does it look like inside your mind? What's your answer? Do you
Yeah, I
have,
would be kind of lost for words in a way. So, what is it? Was again, what does it look like inside my mind?
yeah, something like that? Yes. Yeah.
I think I am inside my mind, and my mind is not inside me, actually.
Hmm.
I think I am inside my mind, and I have no idea. I do see that image that you have of, but yeah, I see it more like everything is connected to everything. And I love that you talk about the universe and the cosmos because, yeah, yeah, I feel my heart and my mind are used to have this particular person with this particular makeup on this particular spot kind of do things. And so I love to live like by prompting. So I have my to-do list, but I also, like get this prompt. So do this now, contact this person now, read that email now. Whereas I have kind of an overview, but I've never thought about what my mind looks like. And in a way, I'm not so interested in my mind. I don't want to offend my mind here. But I'm more interested in actually the heart. How can I open the heart more? How can I be kinder, more forgiving? That's my practice more than the training of my mind, I think.
Yes, that doesn't surprise me at all, especially when you say my mind is not in me, I'm in my mind, because I think you live in a more connected world in a way than I do. And I mean, you almost live with your librarian, I would say. I mean, I'm sure you have a Miss Moneypenny, but
Oh, I do
you,
have a Miss Moneypenny. I have endless lists of things to do, and I enjoy actually. For me to kind of, when I have too much to do, I do the easy things first. Like I make a money transfer, or I do some admin. And that's easy. That really calms me down. Um, but a librarian, yeah, I can only hope. Tomorrow I'll be going for a conversation for a particular post that a company wants me in, and I go like, do I need to study? And I go like, no, I'm going more as myself. I will sit around that table as myself and hope that I can access, whatever is needed in the moment. And I'm not the financial person who can read through a financial statement and go like, what happens there? More like, how can I sense what is happening in the team? Is there tension? How is the relationship between these people that need to lift this company off the ground? So that's more how I work.
yes, and I think we both, and actually, this is probably where my metaphoric mind breaks down because there's somewhere in the middle that I would call using your intuition. And
Yeah.
it's not either sitting with Miss Moneypenny and waiting for ideas to be posted through, and it's not also living in the connections. It's sort of sitting in the middle and just opening up and sort of and being consciously aware of things that you can't put your finger on, that you can't know, that you just feel about other people, and that you, as you say, you get prompts sometimes to say, I mean, I sometimes think I need to say this. Oh, that's weird. Should I say it? I mean, that all happens in the flash of a nanosecond, and I say it, and it turns out to be the right thing to have said. And
Absolutely, absolutely. So often, I think what I'm going to say is either weird or stupid. And then you hear this sigh of relief, because other people were holding the same question, but thought, like the other day, I was in a call and I did not understand the structure of how this whole company was structured. And I asked, and I thought, well, you really need to know this. But if I don't know this, I can't really participate. And then, it turned out nobody was aware of the complexity of the structure. And yeah, and it always takes some courage, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah. And I think also I have a slight fear because I often work with men and I may be the only woman in the room, in the space, that I'm going to be seen as a silly woo-woo woman, talking about stuff that isn't as grounded or knowledgeable as, the men have the
As the men
facts
who
and the
bluff their
figures.
way into the future.
Yes, that too. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Sort of things that feel intuitive aren't, perhaps it's not the right place to say it or something, but actually, I mean, I'm usually wrong about that anyway, and people are perfectly they do want it said, and
Yes.
they're
And
not.
even if, I think the year of being 70, the joy of it is even if I say something stupid, like, okay, even if people think, yeah. So, yeah,
Yes, yes. No, I mean, I definitely feel being 70 has been a freeing kind of thing to be, especially to be very public about it, like we are. I mean, although I was a bit nervous about it to begin with, and sort of actually, I mean, we've made a big deal of it. We're talking about it every week on a podcast. And it could, I feel, have gone like, oh my God, they're 70, they're kind of like, they're absolutely nuts, they're over the hill. But actually I feel it's been very freeing, and that at 70, if I can't say this now, well,
yeah,
I'll never say it, so I might as well
yeah.
just get on with it and make the most of it. And I frequently tell people I'm 70. I mean, I don't kind of make a huge issue of it, but if it comes up in
It
conversation.
comes up. But the thing, when I pick up on the thing of fear of being seen as a silly woman or someone who doesn't know or as, too emotional.
Yeah,
Because I had a business thing where I responded, I reacted really vehemently, really, really out of, what I came to recognize as a deep pain. And fortunately, I did not send my first email, but I waited a few days and then sent a stern email. And again, I learned that if I think I'm 100% right, I'm probably in my own process and I'm not exactly in what is being the men were very, very sweet and kind, and said, yeah, we thought something was the matter when you didn't just ask how we had come to these conclusions, when you lashed out and didn't ask. And I still feel some embarrassment about it. Well, whereas at the same time, I feel that emotion, and our processes do have a place. We are a complete person.
yeah,
And so when I think of the mind, it's also something to do with, where you are a work persona and you kind of park, your personal issues and your, whatever is going on in your life. Like you have an elderly mother. I had an elderly mother and there was worries there, and then she died and there was grief, and we kind of park that so we can function, right? So if I think about my mind, I think there's a big parking lot actually for lots of
that's a great image. I like that. The parking lot. Yes, I think I need to add that to my
parking lot
list of
where there
rules.
is, grief. And when I speak to women who pre-menopausal, and, every month, remember that every month we went through the hormonal cycle. And at some point, I learned, I tracked my cycle and learned not to have meetings on like the day before. I would
Yeah,
always envision it at, building a nest, and then the nest didn't bear
empty.
fruit, so it had to
Yeah,
be destroyed. And I was emotional about it. And with that emotion also came, the grief, my personal grief around me of people in whatever circumstances, and the grief that is in the world. And so, yeah, yeah, that's what all the crying is about. But in a way, we're not a whole person when we park too much.
no, 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 exactly. When we sort of divide ourselves up and pretend that one part isn't relevant to another part, when all of it's relevant, and all our feelings and our experiences are wisdom, our,
Yeah.
accumulated wisdom that is what we bring to everything, including, business dealings and work. And
Yeah.
you can't disassociate the emotional. And I do think it's a sort of, it's so, I mean, it probably doesn't happen so much anymore, but there has been in the past, perhaps historically, the feeling and written lots written about it as well, that men are the rational ones, and women can't take part in business or can't do this or can't do that because they're purely emotional, and they can't think logically because they can only, they can't get rid of their emotions. I mean, it's such a ridiculous conceit anyway to think that men are not emotional. It's just often that the male emotion that comes through is often anger, and we somehow give that a different a weight in a way, and we
I
kind of
also think most men, for a long time in their lives, are proving to their father that they can do what he could do, or that they can do better, or that, want that acknowledgement. And that's where a lot of ambition is not their own creative impulse, but a wanting to prove that they can be someone in the world. And yeah, that's kind of
yeah.
unacknowledged. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even today, I mean, I say it's historic, but even today, men are insulted by being called girly, or don't be such a girl. Or certainly in English, don't be a girly swat. The feminine is used to
Well, I
insult
would be
men.
insulted if they said to me, don't be a rude man. I would go like, no, I
No,
don't
but they
want to
don't.
be that at all.
But that doesn't. That is not what is used for men. I mean, for women, women get praised more for being like a tomboy, or the sort of to be more masculine in a woman is not necessarily an insult.
Yeah, I don't know, but I cannot generalize about these
No,
things because I
no.
don't know. But what I would like to come back to is that I love it when meetings and when I chair, I try to bring it in, but I can't bring it in everywhere. Is that you start a meeting not with, the chair, I'm often the chair, and kind of go like, okay, this is our agenda, this is the minutes of the past, blah, blah, blah. But just first with a round, and saying, how are you? How do you sit here? What's up for you in as much as pertains, to this gathering? So
Yeah.
maybe not your whole thing. And I feel that meetings are so much more productive when we speak what's on our mind, in a board that I'm in, one has a he's 50 and he now has his first child, and he had to take her to hospital, so that was on his mind. And then once it's being said, it can also be parked. It can go to the parking lot much easier. I mean, it will always be
Yes.
there when you have, a child and you worry about, but not as much as when it isn't spoken. And
Yes.
and I
No.
love what you learn about each other, what is up for people, and then you're much more kind of a team. It feels like, yeah, my simile for that, my metaphor for that is, how can you take the same train when you're not standing on the same platform? Otherwise everybody's kind of scattered here and there, and then we pretend that we're all here and business-like and we have no other life. We're just,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And also, I think when you hear those things about people at the start, you can then be much more receptive and understanding of the things they say in a business
yeah,
context, because you know what might be behind it, where their emotions lie as well, and
yeah,
what you can be kinder
yeah.
and more open to yeah, where they're
Yeah,
coming
so I
from and
think
how
it
they're
works
feeling.
in a way to kind of bring yourself present. It works to build the circle. I think it's also very good for everybody to have spoken before a meeting begins.
Yes, and that is also a very good thing to do when you have a lower number of women in the room, because often when meetings start and men start doing the talking, it's hard for a woman to break in and actually have their voice heard. I mean, it feels difficult. Yeah, because your voice then sounds different to other people's voices, as well as you're not, you may be feeling a bit uncertain. But if you've already spoken and put a bit of
Yeah.
yourself in there, then
Yeah.
people are aware of you, and it's not like a barrier to break down.
Yeah, it is. And the longer in a meeting, the longer you haven't spoken, the more difficult it gets to speak.
Yeah.
Then it really can become a something.
Yes.
Whereas when you've had, a round and it's also kind of quieting down, kind of sitting, maybe somebody has had, a thing in traffic, or, there's all these things that kind of are then we're whizzing in our minds that kind of can be put to rest. And then we can say, and I think, you know, in as much as pertains, to this meeting and we're meeting for this, I often also say we're meeting for this and this is the aim, kind of give the context that everybody knows. But I think, and there the mind comes, it's helpful for kind of also for the mind to go like, what files to access?
Yeah.
Kind of the programming of where am I? What is the topic? How long do we have? What are the main decisions? Okay, then you can kind of pace yourself also.
Yes. Yes. Yes, no, that's very true. I find personality tests always I'm very attracted to them. I love, kind of finding I find I always found out little bits of myself. For example, the eldest daughter, the eldest daughter effect sort of, was like a personality test to me, and that kind of gave me some context for certain things. But lots of people hate it, but I really like Myers-Briggs, and there's a one called Insights, which we've used with with our team at Rethink Press. We had a sort of team day, and basically there are four types in it: red, blue, green, and yellow. And there's a very clever test you do to find out where your main not strengths, but sort of, well, our kind of personality traits lie, really. And I'm always a bit of an outlier because I tend to have lots of bits of everything, and not, and I don't fit into a particularly neat formulation, really. But that's interesting in itself, I find.
Yeah.
And
So with
also,
these four colors, what have you learned about yourself?
okay, so I'm trying to. I can't remember what they. I mean, the red is about being not just angry. Angry is the bad side of it, but sort of thrusting. Kind of
Uh-huh.
outgoing,
Moving things
ambitious, I
forward.
suppose. Yeah. Blue is kind of like cool, thinking, processing, very logical. Green is about being about other people, constantly considering other people and the makeup of the team. And yellow is outgoing, chatty, talkative, networker. I'm very unyellow. That is the one thing I'm not. The other three I'm quite equal on, but yellow.
You're quite talkative here.
I know, because that's just you and me, It's and I'm protected by the sort of by the zoomness of it. I mean, if I
Mm.
even in real life, I probably still talk to you just in the same way, but if there was more than one person, I
Yeah.
would speak I would speak less. I
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know that if we were going to transcribe meetings, I know that and then we sort of assigned a color for each person's speech. I know that mine would be quite small.
Mm.
I find it harder to put myself in there, but
Mhm.
often. But I don't know. Maybe other people think otherwise, and I talk too much. I have no idea.
Yeah, so I did you do the personality test on my
Oh, I don't
website?
know if I did. Yes, I think I did, but I can't actually remember what my result was.
Well, maybe you need to take it again.
I do, don't I? Yes.
Lisetteschrijfmaker.com.
Yes, I think.
Lisetteschrijfmaker.com.
Yes.
It's called the
Yes.
Childhood Conclusions,
Yeah.
which is not really a personality, but it shows, where your strengths lie. And it has five, um, yeah, different areas, and the first two, I mean, we all this like people who aren't very present, who kind of easily leave their body, but live a life of fantasy, are very creative, very good at. I have this friend in an organization. We work together, and her role was a strategic connector. And she still does that. And she just sees connections between people and organizations. And where I like, wow, but she lives like she sometimes has trouble kind of being here and dealing with the here and now, but she has this amazing ability and helicopter view, and which I don't really have.
Yeah, I think I do quite a lot of that, and I live in stories. That's why I like to write fiction, but I
Yeah,
also listen to fiction because when I'm listening to an audiobook, I'm simply in another world, and it really
yeah,
annoys me when people come and talk to
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
yes, no, that's
So
very interesting.
that's kind of the first childhood conclusion, which, the conclusion is also, oh my goodness, what have I done as a soul to incarnate in this tiny little body in this difficult world where everything is so loud and so slow? I need to kind of go out, go out. But it comes with a lot of perks. And then the second one is, where is the person who likes to be in the spotlight, who likes to be on the stage, who likes to be at the center of things, and who likes to talk and is gregarious in a way. I
Yeah.
very much, identify with that. I like to be, yes, I love being on stage and
Yes, I
so
like
I
what
also
you're
have to look
saying.
out for kind of when I'm chairing a meeting, do other people have enough speaking time or do I take up most of the time, which is not very good chairing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's a huge division there. I love being on stage and performing in a
Hmm.
set kind of environment, but I don't like being the center of attention in a conversation or even a meeting. So I like chairing because then I can pass, the
Yeah.
conversation can be everybody else and I don't
You're the
have to.
traffic controller.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's really interesting. Okay, go on next.
Yeah, so these are the basic two, and a kind of a thought that goes with it is in for the first one, oh, I should be away, I shouldn't be here. There's many people who talk to me about if they only were somewhere else, life would be much better. That's very much a sign of the childhood conclusion one.
Right.
And a childhood conclusion too is very much there's not enough. I'm not enough. There is not enough. I don't have enough time. I'm not accomplished enough. All the things that have, the Velcro of enough attached to it is kind of an activation of a time when you were tiny and you needed food and the caregiver or your mother was somewhere else and they knew they would come in 5 minutes but you didn't and you knew some energy had to be put in, so it's really a kind of life and death situation for the tiny
Yeah,
baby as well. So
yeah,
and the other three are kind of overlays. So number three is very much the person who gives in and then suppresses their anger. Creative people. The story is, a child makes a drawing and then the mother takes it and hangs it on the fridge, but it wasn't ready yet, and then talks to it, shows it to the world and says, "Isn't this a nice little fox?" And the little girl or boy drawing it thought, well, but it was a kitten, and but you can't. So you
yeah,
can't really, those, grown-ups will just march over your creativity. So then you swallow it. You swallow it.
yeah,
With that comes huge resentment and anger
yeah,
for the way they treat you.
yeah,
And so these people are the most loving, the most kind. They're all over the place in caregiving and nursing places because they give and then they erupt from time to time. And the
yeah.
fourth is actually that the person who is not very trusting is really a trust issue, like a trust issue with a parent. And and so they feel they need to be, they're strategists. They're the strategists of this world. They will also kind of position themselves in the room where they can see everyone and they know, oh, this person is, oh, they have that intention. They can just read the room like in intelligence, but they never trust anyone. So that's, when they learn to trust, they can lead with the heart and they become leaders and not managers.
How interesting. Yes, yes, that lack of trust is an interesting one.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
I
then
don't
I
think
actually
I,
got activated in this business thing that I had. It was so all of a sudden I didn't trust these two men, and I
oh,
felt like a dagger I was stabbed in the back.
oh,
And so
horrible.
that's the typical thing of childhood conclusion for.
Yeah.
It's really an issue of trust, and you feel you're alone. You can't really depend on anyone, and it comes from early dealings with parents that often cannot be avoided. And then number five is you probably you've kind of crossed a line, an invisible line of things. You don't do that, you don't say that, but you were a child. You didn't really know, but you felt an awkwardness with the grown-ups, and so you kind of draw your boundary close, and you make sure that you're always kind of correct, that you're dressed well, that you so you keep things in and close and pretend, people think, wow, they've got their things in order. But inside it's like a very, yeah, you make the space smaller than you need to really.
Yes, I think that's that. I recognize that one. I must do your test and see how I'm sure I've started it. Maybe I didn't finish it or something, but sure
I'm
I've.
curious.
Yes, yes, I know. But I mean, as a child, didn't speak to grown-ups much. I liked to observe, but I really didn't like it when they spoke to me. I didn't want to answer. I didn't want them to see me or, kind of ask me.
Really?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'm,
And what was your fear? What would happen if they saw you or asked you?
I don't know. I never analysed that. But I just felt I felt very exposed. I mean, I know that I used to go and stay with a friend of mine for weekends. They had a country house they'd go to at weekends, and I would go and stay for the weekend. And I practically never spoke to her parents except to say yes, please, and no, thank you. And they would try and talk to me, and and yet with her, we
Kind of
would,
closed off,
yes,
so
yes.
as not to say the wrong thing. Was that
It's
it?
not to say the wrong thing. And I almost felt, why are you speaking to me? I'm not here. I'm not in your world. Don't,
Ah.
ignore me. I'm just, I don't wish to be, I'm an observer. But I was, but we would go off and sort of have very kind of vivid, imaginative games. We would even kind of create little plays that we would perform to those very parents
To
at the
those
end of
very
the
parents.
weekend. And
But
I was
then you were
happy.
someone else.
I
You were
was like,
playing a role,
yes.
so it wasn't really you.
No, no.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just very strange. I don't know.
No, no. Oh, Lucy, I think, I've had a private practice after I did my studies at the Barbara Brennan School where I learned about this. And I don't think any of this is strange. I think we all have these, we need to get to know our inner workings, not only our mind, but also our emotional. And for me, these childhood conclusions or the character structures, as they're also called, has been so helpful to see when I'm triggered, what kind of thoughts then keep repeating themselves in me.
Yes. And how do you dismantle the negative ones? I mean, do you need to know the why, not just this kind of thing triggers me, but why it does? What was the inciting moment where this,
Yeah, so
set me
very
up for
often
that?
it's a thing that happened in our childhood, which we may or may not be able to remember. But once you see that story, you can see it, you can even see it with parents and children. There's lots of parents across the street here with children, and you can just see these things happen, right?
Yeah.
And so it happens to all of us. And then because we're small, we kind of take it very personally and we kind of construct, oh, this is how they want me to be. And so we construct someone and then kind of later we kind of deconstruct that again.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I do describe how, some pains will always be there, but first recognize the thought pattern.
Yeah, the
Recognize
pattern
the
is
thought
important.
pattern and
Yeah.
hold yourself with compassion because it comes from pain. And you were very small, you jumped to a conclusion. So, but recognizing the pattern, I have very good exercise here. I can't put you know, oh yeah, recognize the thought patterns right here, and then kind of shift the focus from, you're not that child now. So as the adult, kind of hold the child that you were and kind of commend it from having lived through that pain and kind of having jumped to this conclusion that nobody is to be trusted and they need to be in full control of everybody all the time. Kind of you can also recognize these patterns with these words, right? It's feeling you're absolutely right. You're talking always and never. I can never trust anyone. You're talking absolutes. And then
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, thank ourselves and you can go to feel that heartbreak. I certainly felt a heartbreak when it was like an autonomous process when I was in this thing with my colleagues and, and feel it. And I think every time we feel it, the triggering power of it gets less, even if some, childhood wounds will never really disappear.
No, no, but just recognizing that that's what they are and that's where they come
Yeah.
from, and sort of
Yeah.
being able to acknowledge that they're not really relevant anymore, even if you can't kind of dissipate them entirely, but when they come up, it's sort of not real in a way.
Yeah. It's sort of not real. It's also, very real in the sense that we all have these wounds.
Yeah,
And so it also connects us. We all have to deal with things that, suddenly trigger this
yes.
response. And you're suddenly not really in the situation you're in, but you're in a situation of, 60 for us, 60, 65, 68, 70 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
it's that yeah, that's also something not with that kind of awareness that I've sort of built into my book writing mentoring, because I
Hmm.
tell everybody that it's an emotional process that they will go through, and they will feel really really powerful emotions, and at times, and I know that there's a specific cycle that people go through in terms of how much where they've got to in their book. And, I'll say that at this stage, you're going to feel great and you're thinking, wow, this is going well. And then a few kind of 10,000 words later, you're going to start thinking, oh no, this is such rubbish. I'm writing stuff. Everybody knows this. Who's going to read this book? It's really boring. And then, a bit later, if you keep going, because
It's
that
kind
will
of the
often,
not good enough, right?
yes,
So
exactly.
there's the not good enough
Exactly,
inner
exactly. And
conviction.
often that will knock people off course and they'll stop writing. It's so powerful. But, if they go through another 20,000 words on, they're nearly there and they can suddenly see, wow, I've written this
Yeah.
much. I've poured, this is great. I've actually, I think there's a good book here. And it's not them. It's not each individual person or any particular book. It is a cycle that happens on this process of writing a book. And they have to, as you say, perhaps acknowledge the emotions, but then stand back from them and say, this is
Yeah.
actually nothing to do with the book itself and not reality. And I just need to keep going because I will come out the other end.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we go through these cycles, quite often
Yeah,
when we give a presentation or when we're in a meeting and we think we might say something that is not that is controversial or, book writing certainly has that. Yeah.
yes,
So
yes.
courageous people, all of us,
Yes, absolutely. We have to,
putting ourselves out there in whatever way or shape
yeah,
or
pushing
form. We do
through.
things for the first time and, we're agonizing, but we do them anyway.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's it. Yes, yes. I suppose that's all called theory of mind, isn't it?
Is it? So that's how
Yes.
we started, and that's how you wrap it up beautifully.
Yes, yes. I'm not sure if that's actually what it means, but it is a it is a thing, theory of mind. Probably better go and look up what it really means, but
We will look it up, or maybe somebody who listens can enlighten us in the comments. So thank
absolutely,
you
yes.
for this time.
And I'd love to hear if anybody listening has any other metaphors for what's going on in their mind, or who's
Yeah,
in there doing what, or what the spaces look like. That would be fascinating to hear. Oh, and
very curious.
take Lisette's test. So give us the URL again. It's
Lisette
lisetteschoutemaker.com,
Struitenmaker, like my name is, .com.
and that's it. We'll find the childhood
Yeah, yeah,
wounds
yeah. It's
test
right on the
there.
top.
Okay,
I need to actually update my website, but that's a whole other story. I must
let's
get
not
Miss
get started with
Moneypenny
that.
involved there.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I'll put it in the show notes so it's there as well.
Thank you.
Great.
See you
Well,
next
interesting.
week.
I will report back next week on what kind of childhood conclusion I am.
Great. See you then.
Okay. See you then.